Hey, Wicked Dick here. Taking a look at whether we should be sacrificing a Muppet to the Ewok King. Has he earned meat for his meal? Huh? What? The Ewok King, of course, Todd McLellan. We are 34 games into this season, and the Kings have 13 victories and 29 points at this point of the year, and that's good for third worst in the league. But is that what it really seems to be? Now, if we flash back to the summer when Todd McLellan was hired, there were mixed reactions. Yeah, he's a retread coach. But I think after the Willie experience, most of us thought it was a positive hire because, even if he hasn't won a cup anywhere, we were going to have a professional coaching staff again. We were going to have a structure that made sense. We would have practices that weren't a joke, and he would hold players accountable, basically a professional NHL coaching staff. And surely that had to be worth some positive points in the old standings. Personally, I thought it'd be worth about 10. Now, there were some concerns because, one, he's a retread. Two, he's coached pretty much every team in the Pacific at this point. And at some point you have to wonder why. But three, for some of us, myself included, some of the concerns were his development of young players. He's not always done a good job, to be quite honest. And one has to look particularly at the Oilers, their first round pick, Jesse Pujabala, the Finnish kid. His experience with the Ewok King was such that at the end of last year, at the end of his entry-level contract, I believe he proceeded directly to the airport, walked halfway up the steps to boarding the plane, turned around and flashed the Oilers organization the double middle finger, and said through his agent he would never, ever play for the Oilers again. Now, could just be the player. And part of that's on the Oilers organization. Scuttlebutt you hear about around the league was that he was never ready to be up on the NHL team. They should have never brought him up at that point in time. Some players take longer to develop, and that really it was an organizational failure. But you look at some of the other players on the Oilers, Yamamoto, the wing, a lot of those players that have come up, and it hasn't gone great. The younger players haven't really done well, and so that's cause for concern, to be quite honest. It still is, particularly when you see Tippett up there now playing a lot of the younger players, and as he probably knows, the Oilers are doing quite a bit better. But that aside, when we look at the Kings organization, they were an utter mess, I think, at the end of last year. The word disaster would probably not be misplaced. And now you look at them, and I think we see a team that is organized. It has a structure. The players play the structure. There's at least some accountability. And we see fight and pride. You look at last night's games against the Pens. If you didn't watch it, it was a great game. Entertaining as hell. Kings lost, but it was a back and forth affair. And you saw a lot of little things from the Kings that makes you pretty happy, I think. You saw instances like Lizotte getting, crunched into the wall. Was it boarding? Was it not? Who knows? But of course, the pugnacious hairdo immediately jumped in and started throwing fists, even though it didn't really look like he knew what he was doing. And admitted after the game that he didn't actually see the fight. Of course, we're talking about Kempe, or saw the hit. We're talking about Kempe. But the fact that you have a player like Kempe doing that suggests that there is a sense of camaraderie in the room, some pride. The locker room issues have hopefully been worked out. And I know everybody wants to blame Kovalchuk for all that, but you get the feeling that there were other issues last year. Regardless, it seems to be fixed, and the team played hard. And when there was adversity, the team didn't collapse like they did so many times last year, and quite frankly, earlier this year. When they gave up a couple goals that were, regrettable. I mean, when Jack Johnson scores on you, yikes. There wasn't the full-on, we're all going to die, run for the locker room, like we saw so much last year. There was a lot of fight. It was a back-and-forth affair. Either team could have won. And so I thought that was good. And if we were going to bash Willie for all those problems last year, although honestly, players probably should have taken most of the blame, then we have to give the Ewok King pretty much all the credit for them looking like they're organized and ready to go this year. Now, having said all that, it's really about production. And the Kings are on a pace that would actually produce less points than last year. With their 13 victories through 34 games, they're looking at about 69 points, which is a couple points less than last year. So that's not great. But I think realistically, if you were honest and tried to be somewhat objective before the season, you looked at this roster and thought, man, we really lack talent. And that's what we're seeing. We just don't have a lot of people who can put the puck in the net. And that's just not going to change until we wait a couple of seasons for players to prospects to evolve and come up, which you already know. So until then, I think this is about the best we're going to get. Some nights we'll win just through sheer willpower and pride, and some nights we won't just because we just don't have the talent. And hey, welcome to Kings hockey. What about second periods? What is with the second periods lately? First periods were pretty good. Second periods, I think Ewok King needs to change his speech, or we need to change out the oranges or whatever the hell is going on between first and second period. I don't know. It's very bizarre. I've always found it very bizarre that some teams do this, where they just have one period. Well, they'll go through like 3 or 4 weeks or a month where they seem to have all kinds of issues. Doesn't seem to make much sense. But nonetheless, so what grade would I give the Ewok King? A-. Why would I give him a minus? The Grunion. Why the hell the Grunion is not up on this team? I have no I just can't even grasp it. If you go read an article on the LA Kings Insider today, there's talk about Jeff Carter's shot production, and Carter keeps talking about, wow, most goals are scored within about 3 feet of the net these days. Well, guess what the Grunion does? Bring him up. Free the Grunion. But otherwise, I think the Ewok King has earned his Muppet meal, and good for him. It's nice to see the Kings playing hard again with a lot of pride, and there really are no questions in that area. So good for him. A-. Dig out.